No one.
What's up, Gator Nation? Welcome into the latest Gators Online show. Zach Albaverdi and Nick Del Torre here. Nick has made it back alive from Nashville. How was the bachelor party, sir?
Bro, great time. Shout out to all my guys that showed up. A little cold, a lot of yelling and singing, but a great time. And that's the way to do it. I don't know why sports betting isn't legal everywhere, but we had 32 games on Friday and Saturday. 16
Good time
more.
to be in Nashville.
Great time. I think everyone won money. The whole house won money. So it was a good weekend. Snowed on the way out.
Ooh, nice little way to send you home.
Yeah.
Probably the reason why you're a little down.
Heading out.
First couple of days this week. But the Gators were not down. They're back on the practice field after spring break. And we got to see Billy G back out there for the first time. He has officially been announced as the receivers coach, as well as Russ Callaway. He's officially been announced. So we will get into spring practice this week. We'll also speak to the Gators team physician, Dr. Kevin Farmer, who was named SEC Team Physician of the Year this week. So we'll talk to him about that honor and also about his job with the Gators. We're also going to hear from the Florida quarterbacks for the first time this spring on Saturday. So Nick and I will discuss what we're looking forward to hearing from those guys. And it's a big recruiting week as well. Florida's going to have DJ Lagway in town. Jeremiah Smith, the nation's number one wide receiver, a five-star commit for Ohio State. So there's a ton going on. Portal action, baseball, Florida's killing it. And obviously shout out to the UF gymnastics team. Another sweep for them. This is the second straight year that they've swept the gymnastics title. So we've got a lot to get into on today's show, Nick. But let's start with the football team, which is back on the practice field. And I think that folks in the media could hear Billy Gonzalez before they even got on the grass, Nick. He was that loud.
Yeah, I put it into some of our insider note last week. He certainly was more animated and louder than he was, in his second stint with Dan Mullen. But yeah, I think this is a great hire. The big question with Billy in his second stint, obviously he was the recruiting coordinator for part of the time with Urban Meyer. So he has been a great recruiter, and he has a long track record of great players and guys in the NFL. I think the biggest question with him was, okay, well, his recruiting was bad, and that's why the wide receiver room was bad. There's no question about Billy Gonzalez's X's and O's and what he's able to do, once you get guys on campus. And now I think with NIL, that's going to do a lot of the recruiting for your school and for your coaches. So if Florida can get NIL right, Billy Gonzalez is going to get his players right. And I think his track record speaks for itself. The reactions that Van Jefferson, Josh Hammond, Kadarius Toney had when we broke the news last week speak for themselves. So I think this is a great hire. And maybe, getting a chance. Listen, no disrespect to Marshall, but when Billy Napier called and Billy Gonzalez is sitting in West Virginia thinking, man, I have national championships, and now I'm the receivers coach at Marshall. Phone rings. Yep. Nope. Don't worry, Billy. I'm on plane tickets already purchased. I'm on the way.
That happened probably about as quick as Austin Armstrong coming to Gainesville. We got to hear him mic'd up for the first time this week. You guys saw that video just now. And obviously, he's part of that new dynamic in the secondary, Nick. Him coming over as the linebackers coach from Alabama, some thought that, hey, maybe he'll coach that spot. And Jay Bateman, who has coached safeties for, a good portion of his career, might slide back to that spot. But instead, we found out as these kind of coaching shakeups were happening that Corey Raymond, in fact, was going to get the whole secondary. And he's now in charge of that. And we got to hear from him this week and about that new dynamic and his job promotion. He was basically like, hey, nothing's really changing other than I'm just working with the safeties more, right?
Making more money.
Yeah, that too.
Hey, the
That
paychecks are
contract,
changing, Corey.
yeah, that contract extension as well, which was broke at On3 this week. That he's got till 2025, but there is a little bit of a new dynamic in the secondary, right? Because last year Corey just had the cornerbacks. That was the only position that he worked with, and Tony had not only the safeties, but he also worked with the nickels as well. Now that basically was going to be shuffled up this year. Had Patrick Tony stayed on as the DC, Corey Raymond was going to be the secondary coach. He's going to work full time with the corners and nickels, and then basically split safety duties with Patrick Tony, who was just going to basically oversee the entire unit. And that's exactly what Austin Armstrong has come in to do. He is now working with the safeties in some capacity, but this is basically Corey Raymond's show. And I think the players are excited about it. Certainly the fans are excited about it. And we got to hear from the GOAT himself about kind of where his secondary stands this week. And I think it's starting to take shape, Nick.
Yeah, and you can see a lot of Austin Armstrong is spending most of his time with the safeties. He floats around, which is something I like as a defensive coordinator. You kind of get to see everything, every position practice, but he spends a lot of the time, at least when we're out there during our 15 minutes, with the safeties. And I think this cornerbacks room has a lot of potential to be really good. Obviously, you have Jason Marshall who returns. I really like Devin Moore, who is still in the non-contact jersey after a shoulder surgery, but I really like him a lot. And then you've got guys like Sharif Denson, Jakeem Jackson is someone who on 3, we watched him rise up our rankings. I think Corey Raymond kind of giggled, laughed to himself about that. Like, yeah, y'all were late. Because he, Corey Raymond was watching him when he was a receiver and thought, this kid could play corner. So I think that's another guy that could play early. And then Miguel Mitchell and Kamari Wilson are 2 guys in the back end. And after them, there's really no experience in that safety room. A lot of young talent, but they're green behind the ears.
Yeah, and let's say it. I mean, Corey Raymond basically started the Miguel Mitchell hype train this week by coming out and saying that this guy is going to be potent at safety and that he reminds him of guys that have played on Sunday. Now, Corey Raymond does not say a lot.
Very quiet.
He does not go out of his way to really hype up his players. And it's not like he was beating on his chest for Miguel either. He's very subtle with what he said. But if you read between the lines, he said some things that make your eyes jump at what Miguel Mitchell could be at safety. Now, remember, this is a guy who made his first career start last year at Star. And that was, Trevez Johnson's spot. He started 9 of the final 10 games, except for South Carolina, where Mitchell got the nod. And he also played some safety as well last year. Now, with Trevez Johnson moving on, you thought, well, Mitchell started there last year. Now does he take over as the star? Come to find out that, no, it's going to be somebody else. And now we got Mitchell really repping as the first team safety along with Kamari Wilson, where the Gators lost both of their starters at those 2 spots as well with Trey Dean and Rashad Torrance. So Corey Raymond said that, look, safety is Miguel Mitchell's position. He's got a chance to be really special there. And let's be honest, Florida needs him to, because they have not got great consistent safety play the last few years. And if Miguel can be that guy, that would be huge for this defense, huge for the secondary. And it would also be big if Jaden Hill can be that guy at star, because now he has moved from cornerback, where he started 9 games last year and returned from that injury, to the nickel spot. And as Florida fans know, ever since Chauncey Gardner-Johnson moved on to the NFL, the Gators have not been able to get a guy there that was a star for the Star. And I think it's 7 different players that have started there now since Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Trevez Johnson was recruited specifically for that spot by the previous staff and just never really kind of blossomed at that position. And now we'll see what Jaden Hill can do. But, if you take Corey Raymond at his word, he thinks that it's a spot that Hill can prosper at.
Yeah, and listen, Chauncey didn't want to play that spot initially.
No, nobody wants to play it because it's the hardest spot.
Brian Poole didn't want to play it, and my guy played 7 years in the NFL. Got paid very well to be a nickel back, and I think as the rules change and as offense changes in football, that's not a gadget position anymore. That's a starting position. Teams come out in a nickel base on defense. And if that's not your base defense, the offense is going to dictate to you that, okay, well, you need a nickel on the field unless you want a linebacker covering our fourth receiver.
Yeah.
So it's a spot that I think the thought is changing on it for defensive players. Everyone wants to be, that Darrelle Revis, that guy out on an island. But there's a lot of money to be made inside. So I think this could be a good move for Jaden. And I think I said it on the show last week, if you can get Jason Marshall, Devin Moore, and Jaden Hill on the field at the same time, that's a really good secondary in my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's obviously what they're trying to do. Although I will say, and this will be something interesting to monitor, especially if there is one difference with Patrick Toney and Austin Armstrong, I think we know that Patrick liked to play defensive backs, right? 5 DBs on the field, 6 DBs on the field. He was all about it. I do think that Austin Armstrong, with his linebacker background, there may be times where the Gators only go with 4 DBs. I think that there's times where they may not use a nickel. And
sure, like 3rd and 1 inside the 5.
But I know, but I mean just in general, like a whole game plan where they just don't even have a nickel out there, and they've done that before. It wasn't him. It wasn't the last DC. It was the one before that. That shall not be named. But
who Jaden Hill still played for. Jaden Hill, my guy, has played for 37 defensive coordinators.
That's right. But after the Gators just got embarrassed defensively in 2021 against LSU in Baton Rouge, a 49-42 loss. They benched Trevez Johnson, and for their final 6 games, they played 4 defensive backs in 5 of them. And the only time that they used the nickel was Jadarius Perkins against Sanford. So I am interested to see if there is some different lineups that Armstrong puts out there, or just some different ways that he uses Florida's personnel. But it does seem like we have a good picture of where the secondary stands. We know it's Wilson and Mitchell at safety now. Hill's competing with Perkins at that star spot. Obviously, Jason Marshall is cornerback 1, and Corey Raymond basically said as much this week. And then you got Jalen Kimber and Devin Moore battling it out for cornerback 2, right? And I still think that they need more depth at safety, and we both said it, Nick, but I think that's a spot that they got to hit in the portal. Mandatory
1. Would like maybe 2. I think listen. We'll go off a little tangent. You probably need 7 dudes from the portal. And I'm not trying to tell you or tell people listening that the team is trash, but there are glaring holes. Safety is a glaring hole. You only have 3 scholarship quarterbacks. You need to hit another quarterback. You probably need another outside linebacker, or outside linebacker, edge linebacker for sure. But you need another outside receiver too. This team needs a lot of help before the season. The portal will open May 1st through 15th. As Billy Napier corrected me when I asked him, he said that 14-day window doesn't mean they have to cram all of their stuff in. And now, to a certain degree, yes, you should be cramming your stuff in. I think we looked at when we looked at the portal the last time, guys were committing to places by the time Bird Sherrill was following them on Twitter. Or by the time Billy was following them on Twitter, it's like, listen, there's some tampering going on. And whether, you think your team's doing it or not, guys are hitting the portal and 24 hours later going to a school. Smells a lot like tampering to me, but you kind of have to act quickly, especially if it's going to be a condensed window. So I think Florida has a lot of positions that need, if not complete overhauls, need help depth-wise. And then we had a question last night, Zach, from one of our members. Well, do you think that they're only looking for depth at quarterback? Because you want 4 on scholarship. And my thought is, if you have a guy that can start, you're not going to say, you know what, we're pretty committed to the quarterbacks that we have right now. So no, don't come to our school. No, that's not the case. You try to get the best player available. And if that best player available comes in that's head and shoulders above Graham Mertz, sorry, Graham, things have changed. But right now you're in a position where I think at least 5 different position groups need an influx of talent from the transfer portal.
What spots do you feel like
mandatory?
No. What spots do you feel like they're good at? Obviously, punter. We know that. That goes without saying.
What are the other people too, baby?
I mean, they don't need any more running backs.
Running back is set.
They don't need any slot receivers.
I mean, you have Eugene Wilson
with Ricky back and Trey coming in.
If you could get, I think that's a position you probably recruit more than you would try to get someone from the transfer portal. I think you're okay. You're fine at offensive line. You don't need. I mean, you just got 3 guys from the transfer portal.
Agreed.
The first go around. I don't think you need another one. Offensive line though is a position where a torn pec, a twisted knee, a guy goes down, and now all of a sudden you feel a lot worse than you did before that guy went down. So you could always probably use offensive linemen. I think maybe interior defensive line. I mean, I love Chris McClellan, Cameron Jackson. People are raving about him. Des Watson, what can you get him and his mindset and his weight correct? I think that's another one. Chris Rumpf, who will be here for the coaches clinic, said
Rump Shaker.
He learned at Alabama. Those guys have 1 gas tank, and you don't refill it at halftime. Like once that gas tank is done during a game, it's done. So you could always use another defensive lineman.
You're not putting that truck back on the road.
Yeah, and unless somebody really, really good linebacker wise pops into the portal, I think you're fine there right now. I'm starting to see Jaden Robinson work with the 2s a lot. And that's great to see as an early enrollee freshman. We still need to check. We might have to call somebody who covered high school, Zach, because Billy Napier said he scored a touchdown in 7 straight weeks or something like that his senior year as a linebacker. We need someone to check on that.
My man Jordan Kroger, he covered him. He covered him for the Lake City Reporter. I'll have to ask him if that's a legit stat. I think Florida fans will be happy if whoever starts at quarterback can open the season with touchdowns in 7 straight games. Remember that was the whole storyline with Anthony Richardson, how he didn't have a passing touchdown in however many games.
But he had several 70 plus yard rushing touchdowns.
He did have that. But we do get to hear from the quarterbacks for the first time this spring on Saturday, Nick. I put out a thread on our message board at Gators Online asking for questions. And obviously we got a lot. People want to know about these quarterbacks. No matter who's, under center, it's going to be a new guy. I mean, Miller started the Las Vegas Bowl, but he's still pretty much brand new to Florida fans. And Graham Mertz, though, is the guy that I think folks want to hear from. Obviously, coming over from Wisconsin, he spoke to Scott Carter from FloridaGators.com last week for kind of his first interview since transferring over to Florida, and basically said that it's been a smooth transition for him. One thing that I guess didn't really realize or remember during his recruitment is there has been a change for him going from under center to shotgun. So that's something that he's had to adjust to this spring. But I think coming in, he knows that this is a battle between him and Jack, and he's really had to come and there are some things that Jack has, an advantage on. So he's had to come in and really play catch up with the playbook. Just, I think, getting the systems down, getting the expectations of this program down. But now that they're on the grass, he certainly seems like there's a reason why he's getting those first team reps.
Yeah, and we've talked about it on the show, Zach. It might seem trivial, but just his locker placement, his being placed directly between the quarterback of the offensive line in Kingsley Eggercon, the center, and the quarterback of the defense with Trahaja Mitchell. You put him right in between the two of them. It's not to say that Florida is stacking the odds against Jack Miller, but I think the Gators, Billy Napier, want Graham Mertz to be the starting quarterback. Not that they're going to give it to him, but they want him to win that job. Graham didn't transfer here to sit on the bench. He's got 1 year left. I think he has 2 to play 1, but 1 year left to play. He came here to start. Billy Napier loves everything he heard about him, loves the experience he has. Jack Miller, not his fault. Only 1 start, 31 less than Graham Mertz.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
That's more than 2 years of games. So Graham started a bunch, playing against the tough defenses like Rutgers and Purdue and Indiana. It's going to be a little bit different in the SEC. I think the coaches are excited with what he's brought just in terms of his investment and his buy-in. But it's like you said, it's still a battle. I think Mertz is, based on what we see and the people we talk to, is ahead. It's a lot to be determined, though. And hey, maybe Max Brown starts.
Well, hey, I mean, he's ahead, but you're talking about Max Brown, who's never started, and Jack Miller, who started 1 game. So he doesn't have a lot to be ahead of in terms of. It didn't take much for him to stand out, I think, in some of the areas of practice. Now he's still got to perform. He's got to go out there and lead that first team offense down the field on some of these drives. And we're about to get more of that here in spring camp with scrimmages coming up. What have been your thoughts on Max from what you've seen, Nick? You put out those 3 videos yesterday of them throwing to the running backs, and looks like he had the best rep.
Yeah, it's always funny, and like we're taking as much video as you can. I'm not even really watching
of routes on air.
Routes on air. I'm not watching really what I'm putting out, and then I get like some reactions. Why would you put that out there? Rival fans are going to troll us. I'm like, you can only get trolled if you let yourself get trolled, my guy. It's one rep from practice 5, and people are like, oh my God, Max Brown's clearly the best quarterback. And I'm like, there's no pass rush. there's nobody there. Maybe the ball slipped out of somebody else's hand. Like, you can't make a declarative judgment on the depth chart based on 1 wheel route on air.
Good ball placement, though, Nick.
He's got to start. Start him. Give him the program. I don't know. I think it's a two-man race. I think it's Mertz and Miller, the law firm, and with Brown waiting to get his name on the door of the firm, but not there yet. And then obviously we think you need another quarterback. They added the 2 preferred walk-ons, but you need 4 scholarship quarterbacks. So I think if you're watching on YouTube, the 2 guys on the left there are the guys that will really compete for the job. And as you said, I think Mertz is ahead. It's interesting because a lot more will be gleaned based on the scrimmage, which we won't be allowed to go to, but means that we're just pounding the phones to talk to people who were at the scrimmage. So I think we'll learn a lot more based on how these 2 perform in the scrimmage, first scrimmage, second scrimmage, and then obviously everyone will be able to see it Thursday night, for the orange and blue debut.
Any questions that you've got specifically for any of these guys, or just some things that you want to hear? I mean, I'm interested to see where Jack is at, because the last time I can remember speaking to him, Nick, it was after the spring game.
Yeah.
When Anthony just went off and Jack looked shell-shocked that, he came here to compete for a job that he thought that he could contend for, and he's just had no chance to beat out AR. And here he is in his 2nd year, and he already looks like he's, got his work cut out for him again. So I'm interested to see just where his head is at and his confidence level, because there's no way he doesn't feel some type of way about Graham coming in and, getting the upper hand.
He's got to be like, bruh. Bruh. After the spring game, Jack looked like, this guy didn't have any film, had no idea who he was or that he was even here. somebody bamboozled me to come here. And then now it's like, all right, that guy's gone. Whew, thank God it's going to be my time. And then you go get a guy who started 32 games. And he's got to be like, I've been hoodwinked. Billy, I've been hoodwinked. It can't feel good, but at the end of the day, you know, Graham wasn't promised to be the starter. You're going to get every opportunity. You just have to perform. And that's where that's for every position, but specifically for Jack, it's there is no starting quarterback right now. As we sit here on March 23rd, the Florida Gators don't have a starting quarterback. You and I last year could have said on March 23rd, Anthony Richardson is the starting quarterback. But you don't have one right now. So that means Jack can go and win this job. Can.
And obviously there'll be a guy in town this weekend to see how that battle is playing out in practice. And that will be Florida quarterback commit DJ Lagway. Before we jump to this interview with Dr. Farmer, I want to discuss DJ Lagway coming in town, and this is nothing new. Ever since he committed to the Gators. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like this guy's got his own PJ, how much he makes his way to the 352.
Osh left him in the PJ?
He's got to get approval. But this week is a little bit different, and I think, you know, it speaks to the thing that we always hear about with quarterbacks, right, is when you get them committed, they become the recruiter of the class. And it can go such a long way in getting guys on board and having that guy show up for visits, for games, and be there to recruit other players. And DJ, shout out to him, is going out of his way this weekend to make sure that he's in Gainesville as the Gators host the nation's #1 wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith, a 5-star prospect who is currently committed to Ohio State. And even though he has that pledge in place, the Gators and several other schools are still trying to flip him. From everything that we've read from Corey Bender and all the reports at On3, it certainly looks like Florida is in the mix for a potential switch, and getting him now on campus for spring ball to be here with DJ Lagway. I mean, this is what you want. And, you know, it's interesting, Nick, because I think that, like, you know, back in the day, right, if Tebow, when he was committed to Florida, would have, like, come in town to host the nation's #1 wide receiver and 5-star, like, it would create so much buzz. And, you know, this is kind of as important of a trip for the Gators. And, you know, to be able to have this guy in town with your quarterback of the future, it bodes well for the Gators' chances.
I mean, in my eyes, DJ Lagway is top 2 quarterbacks in the next class. You're a receiver. You got this dude flying from Texas to come and see you. That means something to me. You know, maybe you're in the IPF and all of a sudden the ball's there. You start passing the ball back and forth. Ooh, I can picture this. I can imagine this. It's so big. I don't remember the last time the Gators had a quarterback of this caliber. You can hard stop there. Committed to them, or a quarterback of this caliber, this committed to building a class.
Yes.
And that's something that Lagway said. He says, I want the #1 class in the country. And it's like, okay, cool. Those are nice words. And now he's racking up frequent flyer miles from Willis, Texas to Gainesville, Florida. Like, those weren't just words.
No.
He put he has like a little Post-it note on his mirror where he brushes his teeth every morning that says #1 class. Also, here's my Delta number so I can collect these miles and get these points. DJ Lagway is serious about getting the #1 class. I mean, he's coming in this week. He's going to be back for the spring game as well. He might be back next week.
Yeah, it's impressive to see, like you said, just the level of investment that he has in this program, in this recruiting class. We had him on the show and got to talk with him, Nick, and just an incredible young man, has a great head on his shoulders. And I think obviously the way that he goes about this role as the recruiter for this class, he's pretty mature about it. Doesn't seem like he's someone that's going to pressure kids or become like a nuisance. or someone that's annoying them about trying to come to the Gators. He's, got this quiet confidence and swag to him. And, his talent kind of speaks for itself. And as you said, Nick, if you're a top player in the country, or especially someone at a skill position like wide receiver, these are the kind of guys that you want to team up with. And
if you go back to Tebow, Brandon Spikes, a linebacker, said, wherever this dude goes, I'm going. And it's like, you don't even play on the same side of the ball. So to me, the number one receiver in the country, I can play with this dude, kick it with this dude. You build a relationship. It's like, shoot, I don't know who's going to be throwing me the ball at Ohio State, but this dude was cool as hell. So, like, that makes a lot of sense. I can stay at home. Chaminade was a rival of St. Thomas, so we don't give Chaminade too much love. But Chaminade, don't have to leave the state. Friends, family can come visit me. Just a short ride up I-75. Man, this all sounds good to me.
Yeah, and honestly, Nick, we've talked about this before, but the value of having DJ committed this early so that he can do this type of recruiting for the Gators is something that they obviously didn't have in the last cycle with Jaden Rashada, who was a late flip. And I think, honestly, in recent years, I can't remember. Will Greer committed to the Gators pretty early and was a top flight quarterback. I don't think that he was
recruiting like this.
Yeah, he wasn't doing this though. You know what I mean? Like maybe he's
that was 10 years ago. He was in the 13 class.
14
class. Okay, because I was out in the opening in 2013, so he was in the 14 class. That's still nine cycles ago.
Yeah, it's just and even Tebow, to a degree, he committed to the Gators pretty late in his process as well. Now it was enough
on signing day.
Yeah, it was enough to where you were able to get he enrolled early, remember? So he was one of the first early enrollees. So I think that he was able to influence, guys like Percy Harvin, like you said. Obviously, Brandon Spikes had said, "I'm going to go wherever this guy goes," but it wasn't like he was committed in June, right? And you got to go through the whole cycle with him. So having a prospect of this caliber, I think is going to pay dividends for the Gators in the 2024 cycle, not just this weekend with Jeremiah Smith in town, but for weekends to come. And we know not only in spring ball right now with these visits happening, but once June gets here, those summer camps are going to ramp up. You'll have Friday Night Lights in July. This is the time when things pick up, and to already have your signal caller of the future in place to come for all of these events and the cookouts and all the things that they're going to do on campus, it's huge for Billy Napier and this staff. And another thing that's huge for them, Nick, is to have Dr. Kevin Farmer on staff as well, and all the work that he does as the team's physician. We're going to jump to this break. When we come back on the other side, we'll be joined by Kevin, who was named this week as the SEC's Team Physician of the Year. So we'll speak to him about that honor and his job with the Gators.
What's up, Florida fans? Wanted to encourage all of you to go check out rogueshop.com if you have issues sleeping, chronic pain, and or anxiety and stress. Rogue Shop sells CBD, THC, edibles, smokables, and vapes, as well as handcrafted bath salts, soaps, candles, massage oils, pain creams, and topicals. Rogue Shop is a true small business, disabled, veteran-owned, Black-owned, woman-owned company. They have 5 employees and make all of their products with their own cannabis grown in their manufacturing facility. Visit rogueshop.com. That's ROGUESHOP.com.
Welcome back into the Gators Online Show, and we are now joined by our guest of the week, Dr. Kevin Farmer, who is Florida's team physician and also the SEC Team Physician of the Year, which was awarded this week. Kevin, thanks for joining us, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me. It certainly is a huge honor for me to won this, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about it.
Absolutely, man.
What's the process to find out? We see like the NFL Hall of Fame, and they've made a big deal about that with guys finding out. What's just the process of finding out that that you've won this award?
Yeah, it's funny. I had heard about it weeks ago that Duke Warner, he's sort of the administrative athletic trainer, basketball athletic trainer. It's voted on by the sports medicine staff. So he knew about it right away and called me, and so I knew about it. I didn't realize they were going to do a press release. So I was in the office on Tuesday seeing patients, and my phone started blowing up, and I was like, "What is going on?" And I realized they did the press release. So that nothing fancy. I knew about it. I was excited. I told my family and friends, and that was about it. I wasn't expecting it to get to where it got this week. So definitely an honor for me.
You should get
That's
like
awesome.
a golden stethoscope or something.
Yeah, I think I just found out it's named the Chris. I didn't realize this. It's named actually the Chris Patrick Award after Chris CP. Those of you that have been around Florida football, he is longtime athletic trainers. I have to give a talk in May at the SEC Sports Medicine meeting, kind of a keynote talk for the winner, and it's called the Chris Patrick Award. So even more of an honor because he's somebody that all of us greatly respect and for what he's done for sports medicine and for the university. The South End Zone training room is called the Chris Patrick South End Zone training room because of what he did for the university. So even more of an honor for me.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic. Well, before we kind of revisit where you're at this week, let's take us back to where you began, Kevin. I know Nick will be love to hear about your baseball background, but how did you even get involved in sports growing up, and when did working as a doctor and working in this field even come on your radar?
Yeah, obviously I grew up in Daytona Beach, so I'm a fairly local kid. I grew up a huge Gator fan. I grew up, it's funny, Shane Matthews tweeted me or tweeted congratulations, and him and Coach Spurrier were the reasons I became a Gator fan when I don't want to show Shane's age, but when I was a kid, and so having them, tell me congratulations really brought my life full circle. But I grew up in Daytona, was a baseball player, played at Duke University, and then went into medical schools in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins. At some point there, obviously I knew I wanted to stay involved in athletics. That was always kind of a goal for, kind of hear the story of athletes wanting to stay involved with that. So I worked with the Orioles team doctor when I was up there, really enjoyed that. And then you do an orthopedic residency, which is 5 years, which is basically basic orthopedic training. And then I was down in Miami for a year where I worked with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I worked with the University of Miami while I was down there. I worked with the baseball team when I was there, and then came here for another year to do a second, we call it fellowship, which is like specialized training, and then stayed on. So that was in 2010. So I've been here now for 13 years, and it really has been a great ride. I kind of look back at the things that I was able to experience. There can't be many team physicians who have a baseball national championship, a Final Four ring. I've got an Orange Bowl ring. I've got obviously all the other softball, and I mean, I would imagine I'm very fortunate that my ring collection has got to rival any sports medicine physician in the country, and that's more of an endorsement for the athletic program. Just fortunate to be here at the right time, and hopefully we'll continue to have success and then improve upon where we are now.
If you get track rings, you might have to. You look like Mr. T. You have to put them on a necklace, and it would just.
Yeah, I do. So when you take care of a lot of teams, they have a little bit of a restriction that I can't get one for every. Otherwise, I'd have 50, 60 rings. So every year I have to kind of pick and choose one or two that I want. But I have softball. I have some track. I'm trying to remember all the other ones. I just got women's track indoor last year was the one I chose, which is really nice. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm very, very blessed to be here.
Now, one that had to be a little special for you was that baseball one, obviously because of your background. Fill Nick in a little bit about your days at Duke, man. What position did you play? And
yeah, so I was a second baseman growing up. Then I kind of bulked up a little bit and wasn't quite as fast as I used to be. So I got into college. I was a better hitter than anything. So left field, they put me at first base, which I don't know why. I'm only 5'9", 5'10", but I played some first base. DH. We had some success. We had a couple guys on that team that went professional. Scott Schoenweiss was on that team, played for the Mets for a long time. I faced Chris Benson. Back then he was throwing 98, 99, which now is normal. Back then that was upper echelon velocity. And so it was fun. I had some back issues and some health issues. Maybe that's why I kind of gravitated another reason towards sports medicine. It's kind of a common theme. But yeah, obviously, I mean, as a kid growing up in the South playing baseball, Omaha was always we always heard about. Oh, I had shirts as a kid, Destination Omaha. I used to come to Gator baseball camp, and so I've been there now with the team five times, I think, since I've been here. The first year, 2010, I didn't go, but I've been the other 5 times. I think Nick, you probably been there for most of those as well. But been to Omaha now 5 times, and obviously winning it in 17 was a lot of fun. I'm lucky that if you look at the somehow I snuck onto the team picture. So if you go to the Condra ballpark, I'm on the side there on the national championship picture there in the walkway. So, you know, it's always been great to work with. All the coaches have been great. You know, it's just been a great experience.
Well, I tried to tell Scott. I got here in 13. So the first time they went to Omaha that I was covering the team was 16, and that team was incredible. They just ran into some great pitching, went to a barbecue, and then I went in 17. I made sure to tell both Jeremy Foley and Scott Strickland, hey, I'm not saying it's me, but I've only been to Omaha one time, and it turned out pretty well for you guys. I also have a one-way ticket out here, so the team plane would be a nice way home. They didn't take it. They did not take me up on the offer. And then I went out in 18. So I've only been twice, but growing up playing baseball, like you said, I never got to the old stadium. TD Ameritrade is really nice, but I would have liked to have seen Rosenblatt before they tore it down. But that's a great weekend or a great week.
It's awesome. If anybody can make it out there, I highly recommend it, especially if you're a baseball fan. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I did not make it to the old stadium either, because ever since I've been here, it's been at TD Ameritrade. But I would have figured 16 would have been the year we won it, because we had such a great players. But like you said, just baseball is such a game of streaks and luck. And then 17, I would not have expected to be the year we won it. And so, it's looking back on the experiences out there, it really is. Speaking of the plane, I remember one year I had to give a talk, and I was in Las Vegas giving a talk. The team was flying out, so I couldn't go with the team. And my wife and kids got to go, and I got a picture, and they were on the Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones were playing in Orlando, and they were able to use their charter flight for the team to fly them to Omaha. So I get a picture of my wife and kids with the Rolling Stones big, the lips picture on their plane, and I'm stuck in the airport in Las Vegas trying to make my connection. I'm like, what the heck is all this about?
Sitting in 29F while your wife and kids are flying in the Rolling Stones plane.
Exactly.
Obviously, Dr. Kevin Farmer, you've got to see a lot of changes in medicine, throughout the past decade, and how, one of the storylines that we always hear about is how, the repair from ACLs and how quick that turnaround is now compared to, maybe 20 years ago. What's it just been like for you to see all these changes and advancements and adjust with the times?
Well, it's been fortunate to be part of it and to experience it and to see the evolution. Obviously, getting athletes back quicker is always the goal, getting them back safely. But the companies out there now, the science, the studies, really has been an evolution where we can do these things better, safer, get them back quicker, and knock on wood, lower our chance of re-injury. And so, it definitely has been fun to be part of that evolution and to be involved with studies. We're involved with a lot of studies here at UF, trying to, not with student athletes, but certainly involved with studies where we collect all of our data, look at outcomes, and try to do things that we can do to help forward our knowledge so that we can improve outcomes. But that certainly has been something that's been fun part of my career.
Are there some players that you've worked with or just some cases that you've had in the past that you're just really proud of or really bring you joy to see, some of the turnarounds and rehabilitations that have been made, and just to see someone go from a really tough injury to be back out there playing and competing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them, but certainly I've developed relationships with a lot of these kids and see them succeed. Obviously Vintrop Miller, the last couple of years we've done a lot of injuries, and just to see just the ray of light that he is when he's out there, and it really makes it worthwhile for me. Obviously Anthony I've known since high school here at Eastside. I mean,
Yeah.
Zach, you and I used to hang on the sidelines in Fort White and Lake City back when you were working, weren't you working for Lake City?
Lake City Reporter, yeah.
Yeah, so that's when we first used to hang out. So you go back and you see Anthony at Eastside, and he had dealt with him some injuries there. We got through, and then obviously injuries here. Now to see what he did, at the combine, and his mom is a patient of mine. You feel like you're part of the family, and so you get this internal proudness and things that really make it all worthwhile.
That's awesome.
One thing I wanted to mention, because it seems like Florida fans will say Florida had bad luck, 2 years, or it might have even been the same year with the testing that you guys do, like the physical testing that found the heart imbalances or the rhythmic imbalances with James Robinson and with Randy Russell. What went into that? Because it seemed like you guys were, maybe Florida was one of the first schools to really start catching that stuff. And that's something that, you'd rather find out early than find out in the second quarter of a game when something, tragic is happening.
Yeah. And this is, so it kind of gets teased out where we have primary care physicians and a great group, the student health center, and then the orthopedic side. And I want to make sure that I give them the credit because they're the ones that really spearheaded the evolution of the preseason or the incoming student physicals, as well as the athletic trainers here at UF. But the administration has always supported us to go above and beyond. So the requirements for preseason physical did not require necessarily you to have to get an EKG, which we've gotten now for years.
Wow.
And then they added an echocardiogram, which we were one of the first universities to get echocardiograms on all athletes. And so when you add the testing that to that level, when it's not necessarily required, then you're going to pick up things that maybe otherwise wouldn't have gotten picked up. And both the ones that you mentioned had real issues that got picked up, and I would venture to guess potentially avoided being in a situation for having catastrophic injury. And so we have definitely been on the forefront of doing whatever we can to maximize student safety, and even if it potentially has some negative side effects as far as competition. Like you said, we lost a couple of very good athletes because of it. But if it was my son or daughter, I would certainly want that as opposed to not knowing.
How random was that happened 2 years in a row like that with James and Randy?
It's pretty uncommon, but yeah, I mean they both had that issues that I think we're very fortunate were picked up.
You lost two good athletes, but you probably saved two great people.
Yes,
and just a different life path for them. But
and shout out to those guys too for both, sticking it out and staying at UF and graduating. And obviously, we saw what Randy got to do with the Eagles this year, which was awesome.
Yeah, no, it's they both made the most out of what I would imagine is a very difficult situation for them.
And then, Kevin, thinking back on your 13 years at UF, obviously you've got to experience so many seasons and memories with teams. Are there some that stand out, or are there some that really, obviously, I imagine that 2017 title is probably up there, but what are some other ones that really you look back on and cherish a lot?
Yeah, I mean, certainly 17 was a lot of fun. The Final Four run was at 14 with basketball. That was a great team, and just great kids. I mean, Will Yagett just tweeted at me 2 days ago. Obviously Patrick, we're all following what he's going through and rooting for him. But to have that team that didn't have any first round draft picks, but to be as dominating as they were, and then to have Billy and a great staff, that was a fun run that really obviously stands out. And obviously the SEC championships with football were enjoyable and exciting. And but yeah, I think that the baseball run and the Final Four run are the ones that really kind of stick out for me.
You could be having another baseball one this year, man. Things keep going the right way.
Yeah, as a baseball player, I'm not going to say anything or jinx anything. We're all
better.
Right.
Yeah,
in Omaha one year, I forget what year, maybe 18. I had to fly out. We had the first game and we lost, and I used to stay in a dugout for the games. We lost the 18 lost the first game. I had to fly to Scotland to give a talk, and then I missed the second game, and I flew back, and they won the second game. And then they
stay out of that dugout.
They kicked me out of the dugout the
Out
whole
of that
World
dugout.
Series. I didn't know where to go. I'm like walking the halls every game. I'm like, what the heck?
We're baseball players. We're not superstitious, but we are a little stitious.
Right.
If you were in the dugout and we lost and you were out of the dugout, I'm surprised they didn't fly you back to Scotland.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to get out of the country.
Exactly.
It's so funny. So people right now are asking me, Nick, is this team Omaha or bust? I'm like, listen, there's 291 Division I baseball teams. Only 8 get there. So much stuff can happen in between. But yeah, this team is really good. They're a lot of fun to watch. Might have to fly you back to Scotland if the team gets there.
Certainly, the pitching staff is. I mean, we've had good pitching staff before, but I mean, the 3 weekend guys just right now are so dominant that
We're wrapping up with Dr. Kevin Farmer, Florida's team physician. Kevin, one thing I wanted to ask you about that I'm curious is Billy Napier's Army, and specifically within the strength staff, and how they've kind of bulked that up, and they have so many people in the weight room that not only work with these players but monitor their health, monitor where they're at. How beneficial is that kind of Florida's made that investment? How much does that maybe help with your job and keeping these guys healthy?
It's hugely beneficial. So the strength staff and the athletic training staff work very closely together. And so, they make sure they modify any of the workouts. If an athlete's coming off an injury or rehab, and they talk closely. We have a coach who's basically their sole role is return to sport type progression. So that's what their focus is on. Is you take an athlete who's had surgery, coming back from an injury, has finished with the athletic trainers. Now they're on a progression, return to sport. That's their sole focus. And so, the best way to not have to see me surgery is preventative stuff. And that's the stuff that they all do, the strength coaches, athletic training staff. And so it makes my job a lot easier. And you can definitely look at the data over the years, not just here, but anywhere, and see that, different approaches to strength training and preseason conditioning definitely has an effect on the risk of injury down the road. You see it in the NFL all the time. You have a team that has a season that has a large number of injuries, whether or not it's related or not. What do they do? They change over the strength staff, and so it definitely is hugely important. We've got a great crew that our athletes are very fortunate to have, but they work very closely, not as much with me, but with the athletic trainers to really kind of work together on a plan for everybody.
And then, Kevin, what does your schedule look like on a monthly, yearly basis? Like, how do you get, how do you figure out which teams you're going to be with, and kind of, managing all the schedules and stuff that you have to balance in your work?
Yeah, there's 6 different team physicians, so we all sit down and go over the schedule, and only certain sports have a mandate by the NCAA to have a physician on site. So those we figure out who's going to be there. Certainly football and basketball, they like having orthopedic as well as primary care for those sports. The other ones we can kind of figure out who's on site, but that schedule, we figure out every game someone is at least available for. Obviously, I have my normal job. The athletics is kind of after hours and weekends. My normal job is just somebody in the community gets hurt. That's what I'm mainly doing. So that's 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. But then I usually go to training room. So during football season, every day I go to training room after practice. Then obviously the games, for away games and those things. But there's a handful of us. We all work closely together to make sure we figure it out, make sure everything's covered. And the other part is we're academics, so we have to give talks and travel a lot. So if I'm not covering events, I'm often traveling somewhere to speak, or I'm going to New Orleans next weekend for the big football course where I'm speaking there with basically a lot of the NFL doctors. So yeah, it's busy, but you find a way to make it through.
Well, listen, man, I definitely respect the job you do, and I think I speak for Nick and all Florida fans that listen to the show that we appreciate the work that you put in. And I know it's not just, like you said, you're 8 to 5 and then your weekends, but heck, man, you even are out there at high school games and lending your time to some of the athletes here in this area. So it's much appreciated, and it's awesome to see you recognized as the SEC Team Physician of the Year, because it's been a long time coming.
I appreciate it. It means a lot coming from you guys. And thank you for all you do supporting supporting the Gators, and appreciate the opportunity.
We're going to see if we can get you that golden stethoscope. I might have to get crowdfunded resources here.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Awesome. That's Dr. Kevin Farmer. Appreciate him for joining us this week. We're going to jump to this break and come back on the other side to wrap up the Gators Online Show. Welcome back into the Gators Online Show. Appreciate Dr. Kevin Farmer for joining us in the last segment. And again, congratulations to him on his award. And he's also a guy that is very involved throughout the NFL draft process. He, since 2014, has been the NFL Combine representative for the Miami Dolphins, and a really cool story about him going through the draft process with Dameon Pierce as well in recent years. And obviously some Gators going through the draft process now as we bring you this week's segment brought to you by Vitamin Energy. Vitamin Energy is a powerful, naturally caffeinated energy shot that nourishes your body with vitamins, supports healthy weight loss, and boosts energy for 7+ hours with no jitters or sugar crash. This is naturally caffeinated shot with a green tea extract, and it supports gut health, gives you energy, and again, most importantly, no crash. Nick and I have been enjoying this now for several weeks, and my favorite, of course, is the Focus as a sports writer, able to keep me on my storylines, and especially when I'm trying to burn the midnight oil. And but they got all different kinds of energy shots that you can take if you're trying to work out, if you're trying to focus, if you're not doing anything in terms of athletic. So definitely make sure you go to vitaminenergy.com and use the discount code GatorsBOGO so that you can buy one and get one free. And if you are tuning in to the Gators Pro Day on March 30th and you see a guy out there running around that you may not recognize as a former Gator, that's because he's not. He's a former US track athlete, and that's Dedrick Van Over. And he's going to be out there competing at Pro Day and trying to put on a show. And when you go out there and see him run his 40-yard dash, you're going to think that this dude just took 3 vitamin energy shots because this guy runs a 10-1. I can't wait to see what he runs in the 40.
I've worked vitamin energy into my daily routine. No offense to our sponsors. There's not enough vitamin energy in the world for me to catch Van Over in a race. I don't care what kind of head start you give me. He is going to get me. It'll be interesting to see him run. Would love to see. Obviously, you said 10-1, 100. What does that translate to? Not just a track athlete. He was listed as a 5'10", 170-pound defensive back from Moreover College. Produced 7 interceptions and 21 pass deflections in a 20-game stretch to pair with 53 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, and a fumble recovery. He transferred to Florida to continue his sprinting career and was there in the 2021 season, set a personal record of 24-3 in the outdoor 200 at the SEC Track and Field Championships. It was last year that his track career really took off. He set best in the 60-meter with a 6.6 second, tied for 6th fastest in UF history, a 21:10 in the 200-meter, and in the outdoor 100-meter ran that 10-1, 9th fastest in UF history. Elite marks in all categories. He also ran the leadoff leg for Florida's first place 4x1 relay team at the Texas Relays in March 2022. And that was the 4th fastest result in program history at 38.47 seconds.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him run at Pro Day. And Corey Raymond was asked this week if he knew about him. And, if there was ever, any talk about him potentially playing for the football team. And Corey had no idea who this guy was. And then found out that he ran a 10-1 and goes, well, dang, he should have come and played for us. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. He is one of 11 guys that are going to be competing at Florida's Pro Day. And, you look at the list for the team. Well, now, he's not one of the 11 football players, so he will make it 12. And this is obviously an important day for a guy like Amari Burney, who did not get to participate in the NFL Scouting Combine. Also, Jordan Pouncey will be another guy that gets to go through that. But everybody else on the list already has been in front of NFL personnel. Now, Richard Garage, he did not get to work out because of an injury. Ventrell Miller, we'll see if he's able to do anything for Pro Day. Obviously, it would be huge for him if he's able to return in time from that foot surgery that he had. So, and then obviously, I think one of the most intriguing names on this list outside of Anthony Richardson, Nick, is the fact that Brenton Cox did get the invite back to Pro Day and will be participating.
Yeah, so Brenton Cox was not included in Florida's, social media package for the East-West Shrine Bowl. Brenton Cox was given a lot of chances by Billy Napier, and obviously whatever transpired in Jacksonville at that Georgia game was the last straw for that team. But to not listen, Brenton Cox was not going to be invited to Georgia's Pro Day. I can tell you that. To essentially blackball Brenton Cox from working out for NFL teams would have been a terrible look for Florida and for Billy Napier. And everything Billy Napier has said about wanting to help the person more so than even the football player, you would have looked like, just empty words if Brenton Cox was not allowed to come back. This is a job interview. Whatever Brenton Cox did to get himself kicked off of the team, and you thought that would make your team better. This isn't a team thing. This is individuals trying to reach their ultimate goal and become professional football players. So I don't think Florida really had a choice. The stories and the narrative against Florida, if you would not have allowed Brenton Cox to come and do and participate in in Pro Day.
It is in the spring.
It is in the spring. Would have been, deafening, especially with the stance that Napier and his staff have taken about being pro person and caring about these guys. You can care about a guy and kick him off the team. Your parents care about you and they still put you in timeout when you misbehave. But ultimately, I think you had to allow Brenton Cox to come and participate in this event.
And at the end of the day, he's going to get drafted, and that's another guy you get to claim as part of this draft class. I mean, the Gators could end up with double digits in terms of draft picks for 2023 if all but one of these guys come off the board. And I think they all got a chance to get drafted, including Amari Burney, especially if he can go out there on Pro Day and have a good performance. Again, this is really important for Richard Garage because of the time that he missed at the combine. But, not as important of a day for Anthony Richardson, although from what I'm told, he is going to throw or is planning to throw at Pro Day, even though he doesn't have to. He's not going to run a 40-yard dash.
Why
would you? No, just the fact that he'll be in the building, that he will be throwing, and this is Florida's Pro Day. Nick, it's going to be live in there. I mean, it's not going to have the same, I think, excitement as his performance at the NFL Scouting Combine, but the buzz in the building with so many NFL teams, with so many networks like NFL Network, and think about all the outlets that are going to be there to cover him, right? I can't recall the last time that Florida will have had a pro day that probably is going to generate this much buzz as it will on March 30th because of Anthony Richardson. Maybe since Tebow or Percy came out, I don't think that there'll be this much buzz about a Florida pro day.
Yeah, I mean,
because let's be honest, Florida's had top 5 picks and first round picks, but they don't generate the same buzz like the quarterback does.
Yeah, like Joe Hayden, went top 5 to the Browns.
Dante Fowler, I mean.
Yeah. I don't think, it's different when it's a quarterback and a potential 1-1, pick. So if I'm Anthony Richardson, I like throwing. Like, hey, Justin Shorter still needs to run routes. Would like to have Anthony throwing them to him, rather than somebody else. But if I'm Anthony Richardson, I'm shades on inside the IPF and a lawn chair, sipping a Kool-Aid. Like I'm just
throwing.
I'm big chilling. I talked to Anthony shortly after the combine, and he said, Ran my last 40 ever. Done. 4.43. That's good. That's good, baby. That's like taking the SAT one time, getting like a 1500 and being like, yeah, never taking that test again. Good to go. Passed it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously this combine process is and draft process has gone about as good as it could go for Anthony Richardson. And this is kind of his final time to get in front of all the teams other than just the individual meetings that he will have leading up to the draft. So the mock drafts are continuing to roll out, Nick. He's looking like a consensus top 10 pick now. I a lot of them have him in the top 5. I think Mel Kiper has him going 5th overall to the Seattle Seahawks. So this is just going to probably stamp that even more. Between him throwing at Pro Day and between him talking to teams, he's only going to improve his stock leading up to that first round.
We need to get Anthony to throw you a pass.
Me?
To see if you can handle it.
I mean, you would do a better job probably. I'll throw Anthony a pass.
No.
Throw better than I can catch. Now
well,
we can
obviously I'm throwing you under the bus, but I mean, I think we can get a ball 70 miles an hour out of his hand, but we'll line you up 15 yards away.
No way. You're the former baseball player.
Away.
You'll catch that.
Yeah, but I think it would be better to put you in the hot seat.
Nick, I broke my left arm last year, and I don't think that even with a year's time to heal, that it's ready to catch a fastball from Anthony Richardson. I think it'll break again.
On speed dial, Zach. You're good.
We could have Dr. Farmer out there to watch over me.
Yes, it's set. It's all set.
Yeah, I think if anything, if I go out there to do that, it's gonna make Justin Shorter look better.
Yeah, there you go. You're helping Justin.
Helping Justin out. And obviously, that's not the only thing that's extra going on right now on campus. I do want to give a shout out to Florida's Coaches Clinic, which started on Thursday, is going to run through Saturday. Chalk Talk, as they like to call it. And 17 coaches and staff members from the NFL coming for this event. Billy Napier and his staff started it last year. They had Matt Rule as the keynote speaker when he was the head coach for the Carolina Panthers. And this year they've made it exclusive to high school coaches. So I think that this goes a long way, Nick, in trying to establish those relationships and those connections, not only within the state of Florida, but throughout this region. Any high school coach or staff that could make the trip to Gainesville to attend this 3-day event and Coaches Clinic, I mean, just be honest, there are not a lot of programs that are doing this, right? You pay $30 and you get to basically come for 3 days. They get fed. They get put, in front of all these NFL coaches and really get to learn some things that they would never kind of get exposed to outside of this Coaches Clinic. So I think a really smart thing that Bill and his staff are putting on. It just gets you more FaceTime with the high school coaches throughout the state and throughout this region. Plus you get to have some FaceTime with some NFL staff as well, and guys that could potentially be drafting your players for years to come. So it seems like ever since Billy took over, Nick, they always got something going on between Gator Made and between this. There's always an event happening. Yeah,
and it'll be interesting to see how many of them are out at practice too. I think that is another aspect of it.
Yeah,
come and watch. Not only talk to all these coaches who are at the pinnacle of the coaching profession in the NFL. Hey, this is a practice. You can come and watch how we do things here. This is how we structure a practice, and what we do as an organization. Watch our meetings before practice. Hey, this is what we're doing. Here's what install is today. And then watch us go through it. And then after we review, hey, this was install. We installed it. And now how we're going to review it. So they'll get to see inside the Florida program Thursday, Friday, and Saturday as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely want to give a shout out to them for that event. And now we will switch gears. We got some other sports to talk about as we wrap up this week's Gators Online show. And we have been tracking all of the action with the Florida basketball program as the transfer portal is open and it's busy. The Gators have had 4 players that have now departed from Todd Golden's team. And Golden and his staff have also been busy pursuing several players that have entered the portal. They've contacted, I think probably almost a dozen guys now that they've reached out to in some form or fashion. They've had a couple in-home visits. You've got some guys now that are naming Florida as one of their top schools as they get ready to make a new decision. But it is that off-season time. I mean, everyone's tuning in to the Sweet 16, Nick, and seeing how this March Madness is going to play out. And Golden and his staff, man, they've already had to turn the page on next year and start building this roster.
Yeah, and you're going to see this throughout college basketball. I mean, as much as football, and more so than football, because the rosters are smaller. You can completely remake a team through the transfer portal every year.
Yeah,
and last year I think was huge for them. Talking to Neil Blackman a little bit about it, they got pretty much everyone they wanted through the transfer portal last year. Granted, Todd hasn't even been here a year, so this was, got into the job a little bit late. But an under 500 season, when you kind of handpicked your team, makes me feel like a little bit of athletes over analytics, and now you're going to have a second chance to go get some of those athletes in the portal this year. But I think this is going to be a huge time. Obviously, I think you need to work on keeping Riley Kugel if you can. That might be your biggest recruit, but obviously this is going to be a huge time to reshape your roster. You're going to lose a bunch of the guys, I think, from the roster last year. So this is very important for Todd Golden and his staff.
Yeah, and obviously, you look at the pieces that they have already lost from this past season. Not really any surprises at all in terms of the guys that have decided to move on. Jason Jatobo has decided to enter the transfer portal. Coasi Reeves and Niles Lane were the first guys, and then the most recent was CJ Felder. I mean, all those guys basically played reserve roles this past season. Jason obviously got some starts after Colin Castleton's injury, but he's got one more year of eligibility, and he's decided to use his COVID year somewhere else. And, I don't think that there's any, bad blood here, but I also don't think that the Florida staff is losing any sleep over these guys that have decided to move on. And I think a lot of that also has to do with, where they stand in the transfer portal. I mean, they have, by my count, I think have either visited or, are recruiting 5 guys that are ranked in the top 40 of the On3 transfer portal rankings. And that's just in the top 40. I mean, they're after guys in the top 100 as well. And, obviously a great system that we have at On3 that you can kind of see where these guys rank as portal prospects. But, you look at that top 100 and the guys that Florida is in the mix for, Nick, if they can get some of those pieces and fill some of the holes on their roster, they're going to have a chance to kind of rebuild this thing. But to your point, it can be done in one offseason through the portal. You can completely rebuild your roster and change the fortunes of your program. Jamie Shaw from On3 did a fantastic piece this week about all the teams in the Sweet 16 and the portal pieces that they added to get there and what they did to basically rebuild their roster. And, one of the examples that I think Florida fans are probably most familiar with is Kansas State because of Keontae Johnson, who shout out to Key for that dagger 3 that he hit against Kentucky to send his team to the Sweet 16. He had never been there with Florida. Both times he made the tournament with the team, they got knocked out in the second round, and then he had never beat Kentucky as well. So that was kind of a cool moment for Keontae. But you look at what a first-year coach in Tang did at Kansas State. I mean, completely flipped their roster from the portal and was able to put together a Sweet 16 team. So I think for Todd Golden and his staff, that's got to be the goal. That's got to be the mindset. And he and his assistant coaches right now, Nick, they're about to show their recruiting prowess and what they can do to try and rebuild this team. I like a lot of the pieces that they added from the portal last year, and obviously signing Riley Kugel was a really big addition from the high school ranks. But there's enough talent out there in the transfer market that I think if they hit on enough guys and win some tough recruiting battles, that they have a chance to not only go from a losing season to a winning season, but try to make a run in the tournament, which is going to be the goal.
That's a long ways away.
Hey, you got to do it, man. Away. You got to do it. I mean, I don't think that this program can take another year where not only will they don't make the tournament, but make a run, get at least to the second round. And you want to be one of these teams that are playing right now. So they're gonna have to do some work in that portal, Nick.
Yeah, well, big gymnastics guy here. Attended gymnastics for the first time this year. It's not good, and I love how much support gymnastics get, but it's not good when gymnastics is out drawing you with fans if you're Florida basketball.
Well, that is such an interesting dynamic too, Nick, because it just goes to show you that it is not a matter of, hey, we can't pack this place, or tickets are too high, or you can't get a seat in the O-Dome. Like, gymnastics is right there as your example for seeing that, hey, you can sell out the O-Dome. You're just not doing it with the sport that has always done it.
It's not good enough.
And honestly, Nick, I mean, I think that it's not at this point with Florida basketball fans, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you think I'm wrong, but like I think it's got past where it's like, frustration or anger or being upset about the results. Like, I think it's gotten to a point, and a lot of this stems from the Mike White tenure, so it's not fair to Todd, but I just think that there's apathy within this fan base for the Florida basketball team, and it shows up in the seats. Like, it's not like they won't show up and come out for a midweek match or event in the O-Dome. They do it for gymnastics. So it's going to take, obviously, a big turnaround and a really fun team to watch that can have success in March to get fans back in the stands.
Yeah, and that's on. And listen, I don't think Todd Golden's on any kind of hot seat.
No,
just 1 year in, but we're going to see
inherited
what kind
an NIT team.
Well, he kept the standard. He inherited an NIT team and kept the standard. And I listen. The expectation will not be NIT in 2023-24.
Yeah, they got to be dancing in March without question. And we know that this Florida baseball team was dancing, Nick, as they took care of business against Alabama to open SEC play, and then just a thrilling finish against Florida State to beat their rival in Tallahassee. Incredible eighth inning. And I know you were away, Nick, for the Alabama series. Shout out to Corporate Don for proving that he's more suited to be in that press box than me, Nick.
It certainly is. I would have never heard the end of it if I'd allowed you to cover the game. So thank you to Don for covering those. Florida got an absolute gem from Brandon Sproat. He throws a one-hit complete game shutout on 106 pitches. His first complete game, the most pitches he's ever thrown, a career high for strikeouts, earned him co-SEC Pitcher of the Week only because somebody else threw a two-hit complete shutout. I think one hit is less than two, and maybe you shouldn't have had co, but I'm fine with both guys being honored for their spectacular, phenomenal outings. And then Florida splits the doubleheader on Friday with an 8-7 win, a 3-6 loss in the finale. Big game following that at FSU. The Gators are down all game long, Eighth inning comes and Florida State falls apart. The Gators take advantage, a 9-5 win. Brandon Neely gets the save in that game, and really just a continued dominance for Florida. They have now won 20 of the last 24 meetings between them and Florida State. Just a tough night to be a Nole. You're celebrating for 7+ innings, and then the bottom falls out. The Gators will travel to Ole Miss this week, and it's always interesting. Your first road game. Florida's played 20 of their first 23 games at home, and now you're at Florida State and at Ole Miss for 3. So how do you handle your first road week? How do you handle your first road SEC series? Big question. Obviously, Ole Miss lost their opening weekend series. They're defending national champions, though. Lost a bunch of pieces from that team. How does Florida handle this weekend away before coming home, not even coming home, playing in Jacksonville next Tuesday against the Noles, trying to take the series against the Noles. But Florida's hitting really well. Josh Rivera, I can't say enough about what he's done. He was a 250, 260 hitter for his first 3 years on campus, leading the team with a 417 average, leading the country with 37 RBIs. Josh has become a leader on this team, both with his play and vocally. Really cool to see his progression into this, which is his 4th year on campus.
And obviously, coming up with their first SEC road trip at Ole Miss, going to be a tough test for the Gators. But this is a Rebels team that did not have a great start to open SEC play. So we'll see how the Gators handle things on the road. And want to wrap up this show again by giving a shout out to the gymnastics team sweeping SEC titles. They won the regular season title, and then they went out to the SEC championship meet, and they won that as well. Only the 4th team in SEC history to sweep both the regular season and championship meet trophies. Florida of 2002 did it last year, and then LSU did it back-to-back in 17 and 18. And look, Trinity Thomas, it just goes without saying, Nick. She is one of the greatest athletes in UF history, point blank, period. She's, dare I say, top 5 all time, definitely top 10. It's just incredible. We don't cover gymnastics full time, but we tune in and we go out to the events when we can, and just being able to see the show that her and her teammates have put on this year. Man, if we had it in our budget, Nick, I'm tempted to go out there for the national championships and see this team compete, because I think that they got a chance to win it all. But definitely want to give them their due, because it's incredible, this run that they've been on. Absolutely.
When you got all of these women to come back for their COVID years for another year, this was their goal, whether they wanted to say it or not. They were so close. I think within a 100th or 1,000th of a point of winning a national championship last year. Their goal was to come through and win it this year. So certainly winning the SEC regular season title is nice. Winning the tournament is nice. They have bigger aspirations.
They do. And now they got to go out there to Pittsburgh and take care of business. So wish them the best of luck. And that'll do it for this week's show. We appreciate Dr. Kevin Farmer for joining us this week to talk about his award and his job with the Gators. Definitely congratulate him on that. And we've on to another week, Nick, as we follow this Florida football team through spring camp. We see where things are at with baseball. And this time next week, we'll be getting ready for Florida's Pro Day inside the indoor practice facility. So we'll see you guys next week. For Nick Del Torre, I'm Zach Albaverdi.